Hello chess buddies, welcome to Amateur Chess University. Today we will be looking into the analysis of the round 12 game in the Tata Steel Chess Masters 2022 event that took place between Sachin Karyakin, the Russian Grandmaster, against Sam Shankland, the United States Grandmaster. This game was short but featured a cool variation and some really interesting moves. So without further ado, let's get straight into the game. Shankland here had the white pieces and he begins with d4, going for the queen's pawn opening. Karyakin replies with knight f6, going for the Indian game. c4 by white and e6 by black, setting up the East Indian defense. Now white plays knight to c3 and black brings its dark square bishop to b4, going for the Nimzo Indian defense. Now Shankland played a very interesting variation in this position. He pushed his f2 pawn to f3. This is a Kemok variation of the Nimzo Indian defense. This variation, although delaying the white's development, allows it to control the e4 and g4 squares. And here, Karyakin replied with playing his c7 pawn to c5. White doesn't capture the c5 pawn. It played the d4 pawn to d5. And here, black pushed his b7 pawn to b5, looking to break this pawn chain and isolate the d5 pawn. And Shankland pushed his e2 pawn to e4, building the pawn chain. Usually in this position, black goes for castling, but Karyakin here moved his d7 pawn to d6. Here Shankland played his dark square bishop to d2, and Karyakin pushed his a7 pawn to e6. To stop the black's building pawn chain on the queen side, Shankland here played his a2 pawn to a4, and here b5 pawn captures a pawn on c4, setting up the first capture pawn of the game on move 8, and light square bishop of white captures a pawn on c4. Now Karyakin developed his queenside knight to d7, preparing to bring his knight to either b6 or e5 next. And here d5 pawn captures a pawn on e6 and f7 pawn captures a pawn on e6 and light square bishop of white captures a pawn on e6. And here Karyakin moved his knight from d7 to e5, preparing to play knight to d3. Here bishop captures a bishop on c8 and queen captures a bishop on c8 and dark square bishop to f4 by white, giving the access of d file to the queen at d1 and preventing knight's idea to d3. Here Karyakin pushed his c5 pawn to c4 and Shankland captured the knight at e5 with his dark square bishop and d6 pawn captures the bishop on e5. And now white brings out the kingside knight to h3. Now there are two games in the database where black played the queen from c8 to c5 next, and both those games was won by black. However, Karyakin here played his dark square bishop to c5. And it is as of move 15 that we have a completely new game. Now Shankland moved his queen to e2, targeting this isolated pawn at c4, and Karyakin moved his rook from a8 to b8, targeting the b2 pawn. Here Shankland brought his knight to f2, and Karyakin moved his queen to b7, launching a double attack on the b2 pawn. And Shankland finally castles in this position, and Karyakin captures pawn at b2 with his queen. Shankland decided to avoid the queen exchange. He captured the pawn at c4, and Karyakin captured the knight at f2 with his dark square bishop, delivering a check. Here Shankland cannot capture the bishop at f2 with his rook, because if he does so, then he will end up losing his rook at a1. So after bishop to f2 check, the white king moved to h1. And if you look at this position, white is a piece down, and black has both his queen as well as the dark square bishop in the second rank of white's territory. However, it is actually white that is having an advantage in this position, because the black king is still at the center and it cannot go for castling as long as the white queen at c4 is targeting this diagonal. So Karyakin had to prevent this. And there is only one move that can help the black in this situation. So feel free to pause the video and try to figure out this move. If you're able to figure it out, well done. The best idea for black in this position would be to play queen to b4, because after queen to b4, if white plays queen to c7, black can simply go for castling, and if white plays rook from a1 to b1, targeting the queen at b4, then black can move his queen to c5, where both the queen and the dark square bishop are protecting each other. And if queen captures the rook at b8, then rook captures the queen at b8, and rook from b1 captures the rook at b8, and black can move the king to f7, and in this situation, black will be completely winning. However, Karyakin didn't play his queen to b4, he moved his queen to b3, and this was a mistake. Here Shankland moved his queen from c4 to c7, targeting the rook. The problem for black is, now it cannot castle in this position, because if black goes for castling, then white will move his rook from a1 to b1, and Karyakin will be forced to move his queen to f7, White queen will capture the rook at b8, and rook will capture the queen at b8, and rook will capture the rook at b8, delivering a check, and black will be forced to move his knight to e8, and white rook will pick up the dark square bishop at f2, and in this position, white will be under complete command, where all its pieces will be free, and black has both the queen as well as the knight stuck. So after queen to c7 by white, black cannot castle. Here Karyakin was forced to play queen to b6. Here Shankland's queen captured the pawn on e5, delivering a check. And black had no other option but to move the king to f7. Here white plays knight to d5, preparing for queen to e7 next. So black captures the knight at d5 with its knight. And here queen captures the knight at d5, delivering a check. And black moved the king to e7. Here white again played queen to e5, delivering a check. And black moved the king to f7. Here Shankland brought his rook from a1 to c1, and it was in this position on move 26 that Karyakin resigned the game. White is preparing to bring the rook to c7 next, and black doesn't have much option left. If Karyakin plays something like rook to e8, targeting the queen, then Shankland will bring the rook to c7, delivering a check, and the queen will be forced to capture the rook at c7, and Shankland will capture the queen at c7, delivering a check. And if king moves back to f8, then white will play queen to d6, delivering a check while also picking up the pawn at a6 next. And if king moves to g8, then white will capture the pawn at a6. Even with two rooks and dark square bishop on the board, this will be too much for black to handle. So Karyakin resigned on move 26, giving Shankland an impressive win. So that's the game. Even though Karyakin had additional pieces compared to Shankland, he lost the game due to not playing castling at the right time. This goes to show why castling is so important, especially for black, because a king in the center is always a target no matter how many pieces protected. If you have any thoughts on this game, feel free to share. Thank you for watching. Take care. See you.